Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert at the Center for Self-Differentiation. I'm the director, and we're connected with the Family Tree Counseling Associates in Carmel, Indiana, on the north side of Indianapolis. And I do individual, marital, and family coaching. And this video is entitled Dealing with the Over-Serious Person. The last video I did was entitled Over-Seriousness Kills Self-Differentiation. Kind of a complicated title. But the issue of over-seriousness is an important one in that it is a dynamic of enmeshment and fusion. And for a lot of people, this interferes in their relationships and causes them a great deal of stress, conflict, and difficulty with that enmeshment. And so I deal with this often in helping people to learn to self-differentiate. This video, dealing with the over-serious person, is in response to a number of listeners and viewers who contacted me to ask me if I would do a video to give them some direction about how to respond to someone who is over serious to them, and what should they do, what are some healthy responses, what are some self-differentiated responses. And in this video I'd like to give you some vignettes and some examples of a healthy response to someone who is or who has become over serious with you. First of all, let me describe what over seriousness means. What do I mean by this? Over seriousness is a reactive state. It's a state in which I think reflects our immaturity. And when I say immaturity, I mean our lack of self-differentiation. It reflects unresolved issues that we have. It reflects a desire to enmesh with someone. And often folks will use over-seriousness as a means to enmesh with us. And it often is a greater intensity than the situation warrants. And this over-seriousness is an expression of low self-differentiation, many times low self-esteem as well. It clouds a person's self-awareness, and it clouds a person's awareness of another person. When someone chooses to be over-serious with you, that often is an invitation for enmeshment or fusion, and we should think of it that way. For example, if I walk into an office or a neutral office kind of setting and do the classic joke kind of example of good morning, and then someone says, well, what do you mean by that? That's an over-seriousness that has happened and doesn't fit the level of seriousness that I feel. I'm casually saying good morning, and they're becoming over-serious. That is an invitation to engage with them, and often to engage with them in an unhealthy way, to engage with their issues, to engage with their over-seriousness. And so we want to be careful how we engage with someone who's pulling us into their orbit and pulling us in by a tractor beam into their life, and what ends up happening is we end up losing some self as we interact with them. They've already lost some self or a sense of self by their response in the first place, because if they were self-differentiated, they probably wouldn't have responded that way. Healthy people don't often respond that way. Self-differentiated people don't respond, well, what do you mean by that? So they're pulling us into that enmeshment, and we want to be careful in how we respond so that we maintain a healthy amount of separateness. Because self-differentiation is the process of being ourselves in a relationship, being ourselves while remaining connected. So having and maintaining a healthy balance of togetherness and separateness. This is enmeshment. This is cut off. We want to maintain a healthy balance of togetherness and separateness. And when someone becomes over seriousness, when someone becomes over serious, they tip the balance and often have tipped over into the area of too much togetherness, too much fusion, too much enmeshment. And so we should be alerted when someone becomes over serious in that way. And by the way, I'm not talking about healthy seriousness. If I go into a funeral and I'm visiting someone who has passed away and I'm talking to their family, I'm not going to be silly and inappropriate in my response to them. I'm going to be serious, and I'm going to be somber for the situation that it requires. But even in serious situations, a healthy playfulness can actually bring a lot of humanity to the situation. But I'm, again, not talking about immaturely, or I'm not talking about seriousness in appropriate situations is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about over seriousness that doesn't fit the situation. Again, healthy closeness is good. Enmeshment in a relationship and fusion hinders intimacy, and it creates more instability and anxiety in the relationship. And this video is about that concept of over seriousness and how do we deal with that. And I want to mention, why does over seriousness equal reactivity? Because it's too much intensity. It inhibits relationship fluidity and the healthy relationship dance. It's like grabbing the lapels of another person. With our over seriousness, we miss the process of what's going on in the relationship and focus and over focus on the content or an issue of the relationship. So when someone's doing that to us, remember they are focusing on content and not what's going on in the relationship. When another person is over serious, they become less aware, less self-aware. And when someone is with us who is over serious, they become rigid and inflexible and less open to others and to us. Often is what happens. So we need to be aware of that. Let me give you an example. I having been a pastor for a number of years and being involved in the church, and a lot of people are involved in churches of all kinds, synagogues, mosques, in religious settings, that often within churches I have found a lot of codependency, a lot of enmeshment, a lot of shame and guilt that tends to attract folks to a religious setting, those who experience problems in those areas. And so what you'll find is a lot of folks will become over serious in a church or religious setting, and I got some responses from people in the videos as to how helpful it was for them to think about this in this way. And those of you who've been to church settings or any number of religious environments, you'll always find the folks who are happy to become over serious over certain issues and come to you and say, don't you know that God is against that? Or don't you know, and that the Bible says this, 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 and this, using a Christian example. And they're very clear, and they're preaching kind of at you. And what's happening when they become over serious about this issue that's either being discussed or wasn't even being discussed, but they bring it up anyway, that what's happening is there's an invitation for enmeshment and fusion. In other words, I want you to think and be like me right now. And so don't you know we should be thinking and feeling the same way about this? Because this is the way I read the Bible, this is the way God speaks, and this is what you should be doing. And I think there are some self-differentiated responses that should go along. And I think arguing is probably not the way to enmesh with them. because often it does create some argument, and it often fulfills what over-seriousness has as a goal, which is to keep isolated and keep cut off. People become over-serious to fulfill a self-fulfilling prophecy that they should be isolated, cut off, rigid, and not work well with others or play well with others, because that's what they grew up in their family of origin learning, and so they act that out in an adult way. And so I think responding, for example, in a more self-differentiated way, of saying, well, I see that you have this all sorted out, and God has been very clear to you. I see that. I don't have it all sorted out, and I'm working through this issue. And again, I'm declaring self. I'm not criticizing them. I'm not arguing with them about their stance, because actually I'm more interested in the relationship than I am the issue or the content. They're over-focused on the content and the issue. I'm interested in the relationship. And I don't have it all sorted out, and I'm okay for not having it all sorted out. I'm working through this issue. Maybe we can discuss it more when I'm more clear about it. Well, of course, this self-differentiation always raises the anxiety of someone who wishes to fuse or enmesh with us. So whenever we become more self-differentiated, you might find a resistant or the other person becoming more resisting to what you're doing because you're not fusing with them as they want you to do. And the other person might say, well, I think it's very clear. I'm telling you what the answer is. What's your problem, so to speak? I'm being very clear. Why aren't you just coming on board with where I'm at? Because they see you're not agreeing with them fully. You're holding back something to clear it up and resolve it for yourself. That's when you can also respond in a more self-differentiated way to someone who's over-serious. I realize you are telling me what the answer is. And I just want to say that's not how I do my spiritual relationship with God. And, but I appreciate your advice. And again, I'm staying self while not cutting off from them. Now, they may want to cut off from me, but that's their choice. It does me no internal self-damage or harm for them to cut off from me. I'm not going to cut off from them. I just maintain my position of this is who I am, and this is where I'm at. And I don't know how I feel about that issue. But no matter how clear you are, I'm not in the same place. And I don't have to be. And I don't have to be. I'm okay. And this is what I need to work on. And maybe it's not even an issue I care all that much about. But they want me to care a lot about it because it's very important to them. It may not be very important to me. But they would like us to fuse or to enmesh. And so I want to make sure that I stay my own sense of self and stay Jerry, an authentic Jerry, while they're being over serious. Same way, I think if you use the first example, coming in saying good morning, and somebody says, well, what do you mean by that? Well, how would I give them a self-differentiated response to that? Oh, well, I was hoping it would be a good morning. It sounds like it may not have started out for you that way. I'll talk to you later. And again, I don't have to engage them any further than that, because the other issue is someone who becomes over serious, again, wants you to take their position and to agree with them. And I don't have to, and I don't even have to. They need to explain themselves. I don't have to explain myself to them. And just like the person who says, well, what do you mean by that? I don't have to say, well, are you okay? What do you mean by that? I don't have to take a Freudian approach to try to sort out with them what's going on with them. That's their responsibility, not mine. If they're upset with me, then they need to let me know. But that cryptic response of, what do you mean by that, doesn't tell me much. And I'm not going to fall for that, that invitation to enmeshment in that. And I'm going to go, okay, well, you can be upset today, and that's fine if that's the way you choose to be. And I hope you change or feel better, but I was just saying good morning. Let me give you some other examples. You're talking to your spouse and say, I really think we could do better having our kids help with the chores around the house. And your spouse says, I don't know why you always criticize me and our kids. We're doing the best we can. And again, you're hopefully, in an innocent way, responding to, this might be a good idea, that maybe we could do a little better with that. What do you think? That triggers something in another person, and they become over serious for the situation, and it becomes difficult for them to talk and to respond in a non-enmeshing or reactive way. And often reactivity is a code word for enmeshment. So here's some maybe a more healthy response to a spouse who's become over serious. Again, the wife is enmeshing with shaming and guilting and negativity, and not really focusing on problem solving. And it could be the wife or the husband, and we can say, I realize we are doing the best we can, but don't you think we could probably tweak our parenting some and helping with the kids? I wonder if we could work together to make even more positive changes. I'd like to talk to you about how you feel and how you feel so criticized by me, because I really do care about how you feel. Again, acknowledging the fact that I'm going to stay on my side of the tennis net of this dance, and I'm going to stay on my side of the court, in that I'm not totally responsible for how someone feels. I'm not making them feel this way. They have a responsibility to sort out their feelings, and I certainly could take responsibility for anything that has been my fault or I should take responsibility for. I would do that for sure. Another example, Marilyn is talking to her sister and tells her sister, and Marilyn's sister Donna is very insecure and a drama queen. She is controlling and critical of everyone in the family. Marilyn's husband is tired of the drama and would like to stay home for this holiday meal. And they're going to have it at Marilyn's house. And Marilyn tells her sister Donna, I don't think Steve wants to join us for the holiday meal this year, but I'd be happy to come. Donna, the drama queen sister, responds in an over-serious way, well, if Steve is not coming to my house for the holidays, then just stay home. I'm so tired of Steve thinking he's better than everyone else. I'll just have Mom and Dad this Sunday. And again, Donna becomes over serious, which is an invitation to enmeshment, and we need to watch that we stay back and not get drawn into that enmeshment. And we could say, either then or later, depending upon when we get ourselves calmed down or non-reactive, Donna, there may be issues between you and Steve. I'd like to give Steve some freedom and space to do what he would like to do for the holidays this year. I would like to come over and be a part of our family holiday meal this Sunday. If you don't want to extend that invitation to me, while I don't agree that that's the way to handle family differences during the holidays, that I would be happy to come, or I would be happy to stay home, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. But next year, I might make some suggestions. I want to support Steve and be part of my family as well. But if you can't allow that this year, I can't make you do it. I will make other plans for this holiday. And again, I'm going to define self and take care of myself, not try to change Donna. I'm going to express my unhappiness with what I think is an immature response. I'm not going to attack her. I'm not going to defend Steve other than support him and him being self-differentiated if he doesn't want to go, or if he's tired of the drama or tired of Donna and her craziness. Sometimes in families we get tired of, or in-laws get tired of some of our family craziness. Or those that we've married get tired of our family's nuttiness, and that I want to give him a break, and that's okay. And I'm not putting Donna down by saying Steve's not coming. I'm just saying Steve is making a choice for himself. I used another example in the previous video on this subject. The husband says, my first girlfriend in high school, he's saying this to his wife, and they've been married for many years. My first girlfriend in high school and I went to Kings Island and really, really enjoyed it. I remembered that. And the wife, in her insecurity, and again it could be husband or wife, well, you never invited me to Kings Island the whole time we've been married. And again, she becomes over seriousness about an innocent comment, not trying to put the wife down or compare her at all to that girlfriend, and he doesn't feel that way at all. We can respond in a more self-differentiated way. You're the one I married, and by the way, I'm less responding to the content than I am the process and the relationship pattern between us. And I can tell someone feels insecure at this point. I had no intention for them to feel insecure, but they do. And so I have no trouble responding to that insecurity by saying, you're the one I married. You're the one I chose. I hope one day you could believe that. And again, I want to address her insecurity and her not feeling special, which I may have contributed to as the husband, let's say. And either way, I'd like to address it and not argue about whether the girlfriend had a good time or didn't have a good time, or that I've never wanted to take my wife, for example, in this example, to Kings Island, because that's a non-issue. The husband would be happy to take his wife to Kings Island. He has no trouble with that. That's a non-issue. What the issue was what she became over-serious about. Giving another example, a 62-year-old father tells his 30-year-old daughter, who is divorcing, I want to support you during your hard time. And the daughter becomes over-serious and reactive. All the men in my life abandoned me, starting with you, Dad. What does the dad do? Someone has become over-serious with him. He was trying to be reasonable, appropriate, mature, supportive of his daughter any way he could be. And he could say, I agree, I abandoned you early on in your life. I have tried to make amends to you. I do love you. One day you might believe it, I hope. Just as I chose to abandon you when you were very young, I choose now to be there for you as an adult. And I am here for you. When someone becomes serious, I think it's always important to take responsibility for anything you have done. There's nothing wrong with taking responsibility for your own actions. And then define yourself, or declaring yourself, we call. And that's where, hey, I was wrong, but now I want to choose to do right now. And actually what I'm saying is there anything more I can do? There is nothing more I can do than take responsibility and do the right thing now. No one can ask any more of anyone than that. And so, again, I'm accepting my own limitations and my own self as I talk to the daughter about this. Here's another example. Everyone is at the family gathering, and Mary brings her new boyfriend, Brandon. Her boyfriend does not know the family secrets, not to discuss, because many families have secrets. The undiscussables in family. We can't talk about that. And some families have lots of things they can't talk about. Aunt Mary's husband is separated from her and is having an affair. It is never discussed. Brandon asked unwittingly of Mary, "Are you married?" And of course, everyone in the room becomes awkwardly silent, giving Brandon disapproving looks and disapproving looks to Mary, um, and to Brandon and to everyone. And Mary, I think, can make a self-differentiated response. And again, working towards being self-differentiated where we're not caught up in the family glue and the family enmeshment where I become trapped and a captive to all of this enmeshment, secrets, and over seriousness that's all happening right now. Working towards becoming more self-differentiated frees us and feels more calm within us, and I think that's achievable for all of us to work towards that goal, where Mary can say, Brandon, I want to welcome you to our family gatherings. Sometimes we find it hard to talk about some subjects. You're free to ask me anything you would like. And again, acknowledgement of the secrets, and you're not letting all the secrets out, but you're defining your own self with Brandon. In other words, this is how my family works, this is all the secrets they keep, but that's not how I operate. So, you're welcome and you can ask me anything that you would like. And I think when someone brings a non-anxious presence to an anxious situation, it tends to calm down the whole more. Maturity tends to calm immaturity. A client comes in and states to me, I can't believe you're such a bad coach or counselor. After our session last night, we argued the entire night, and is that what they teach you in counselor school? Is that what you learned in school? I can respond by being shocked, silent, stuck, shamed. I could try to defend myself. I could try to argue with her about the comments she made about me. Those are all, of course, enmeshing and fusion responses. And I think having a self-differentiated response might look this way. Well, you're right. I'm probably a crappy coach. Sometimes I am. I want to resist defensiveness. I want to resist shame. I want to resist shock. I want to resist all of these because all of those mean enmeshment. Please let me know how the session caused such an uproar between you and Bob. Let's talk about that. Maybe I could facilitate our session better in the future. And maybe I could, better. I want to improve. Realizing that, there may be very little that I actually did wrong, though it's possible. I'm open. I make mistakes. I don't do everything right. There have been a number of times I've needed to apologize to clients. And I think if if a coach cannot, or a therapist cannot apologize to a client, that could be a problem, because that can be very healing to do that, because we don't do everything right. Not every session goes as we hope. And it doesn't always work well. We may not always choose the best intervention. And it's okay to say that. That doesn't mean progress can't be made. So what do you do to deal with someone who's become over serious to you? What are some guidelines to remember? Well, I try to respond to the relationship and what's going on, what is the process that's happening, versus focusing on the content. And I think if we get caught up in the content of what's being said rather than what's going on, what's the feeling tone, what's happening between us, why would they, an example, if I say good morning and somebody says, what do you mean by that? I think it would be unhelpful to argue with someone why this should be a good morning. And that's arguing about the content. I'm more interested in, I notice you're not doing well. And that's coming out between us. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better. I'm not going to argue whether it's a good morning or not, or how dare you think I was saying something bad when I said good morning. That's focusing on the content. Notice when others have become over serious with you. Often the tone and the anxiety goes up at that point. Tension goes up, and it may feel very highly charged at that point. Whenever I feel that sense of highly chargedness, I want to try to get the tension down. And I often think about changing the tension or anxiety in the relationship by being myself and getting myself okay rather than reacting to the other person. That my goal is to take care of me. I don't mean in a selfish way. I mean so that I can function well in the relationship. And often that means don't do what's intuitive. In other words, don't do what comes natural to you. Because if you do what comes natural to you, you may just become reactive with them. And I'll argue with them why they don't think it's a good morning. And then I end up arguing about nothing. Or why the girlfriend and the husband had a good time at Kings Island 25 years ago. That's really not worth arguing about. That's not the issue. And often the issue is not the issue. The problem is not the problem. I think also I try to resist the over-seriousness. I try to own my own behavior and my own feelings, my own beliefs, and I try to resolve any over-seriousness that gets created inside me as a reaction to their over-seriousness. In other words, why am I becoming over-serious? Why am I becoming argumentative? Why am I getting all upset over this? Because if I'm getting over-serious, then there's some probably immaturity, unresolved issues inside for me. And resolving those will help me stay calmer in over-serious situations. Identify what you need and want. Ask yourself, what would I lose or what would be the downside of not being over-seriousness in response to this person? So if this person says to me, well, let me tell you what God thinks, and let me tell you what the Bible says. This is what's true, and this is what I know to be the truth. And there's only one truth, and this truth is as I know it. And I'm telling you what it is. Well, if I want to be argumentative back to them, and I want to engage in an argument with them, why is it I want to become over-serious back to them? Are there issues in me that need to be resolved? Insecurities in me? Did it touch shame or abandonment, guilt? And so I want to work on those so that I don't have to respond in an over-serious way and go, you can believe whatever you want to believe. That's okay. I'm not in charge of what you believe. I'm not sure it's a real helpful approach that you're taking, but that's fine if that's who you are. Sometimes I've needed to change the subject if I need to, or avoid the confrontation, or I say, we might need to talk about this at another time. If someone becomes over-serious with me, and if I feel unstable, or I feel emotionally not very calm, or I feel reactive, then I probably say, hey, we need a time out. Let me go sort out my own feelings so I can talk with you about this. Because I don't want to just get enmeshed and I don't want to get involved in the enmeshment. You could be playful, and I don't mean silly, I mean you could be playful. Just as I used the example of my son, who when he was very young, said, Dad, I want to go see Tommy, it's a school night, it's 9 o'clock. And I go, no, Andrew, we can't call Tommy's family and have you go over and play with him. And he goes, well, you're the worst dad in the world. I hate you, Dad. Well, should I argue with him about the content of that? Do you think that's really what we need to argue about? No, it's not about that content. He just wants to go to Tommy's. And he's thinking maybe my shame or guilt might get that a positive response to him. So instead I go, no, Andrew, you're probably right. I am probably the worst dad there is. Sorry. That's being playful. and not becoming over serious. Take responsibility for your own actions and behavior. Define yourself regarding what you want, you believe, and choose to do. This is declaring self or defining self. And we could probably do a whole video on just declaring self and defining self. And this often keeps you from becoming over serious in response or becoming overly fused. In other words, like what I shared with the person who was kind of thumping the Bible. Well, the Bible says, and the verse says this, and God believes this, and why aren't you on board? I can define myself and say, but that's not how I do it. That's not my relationship with God. That's not how I understand this issue. So I'm defining myself with them rather than cutting them down or pulling them down. Certainly resist triangulation with others. And then at times I can use a confused state to stay unenmeshed. That I'm not sure I know what you mean. And when someone, good morning, and somebody says, well, what do you mean by that? I go, I'm not sure I know what you mean. But I hope you have a good day, and I'll go off my way. So I stay confused rather than having to become argumentative or over serious with them. If you'd like to learn more about self-differentiation or gaining a true sense of self, I want you to contact me for online or in-office help. If you email me, I'll send you a complete listing of all of my free videos, explain the online coaching process, explaining fees and answering any of your questions. There's no pressure. I'm very easy to work with. You might check out Angie's list for lots of my recommendations. I hope you'll join our YouTube channel at Family Tree Counseling channel. Share this video on your social media. You can see on the screen the contact information from me. And I want to tell you thanks for watching. Have a great day. I might also add there are a couple videos I'm doing now that you might be interested in. One video is ACOAs and emotional hunger, and what emotional hunger is about, and for adult children of alcoholics. And then another video is the video about process versus content paradigm and navigating relationships, understanding process versus content. Because that's very important with using a systems understanding of relationships. Gives you more leverage and gives you more freedom for self-differentiation. So I hope you'll watch for those. And again, I appreciate you watching. Take care.